My brother stole my inheritance, then showed up begging at my door 10 years later when my grandfather died. He left behind more money than anyone expected. Not millions, but enough to completely change someone's life. Growing up, Grandpa and I were extremely close. I spent weekends helping him repair old furniture, listening to his stories and learning how to fix things around the house. My older brother Eric never cared. He only visited when he wanted money. Everyone in the family knew it. But nobody talked about it. Grandpa never criticized Eric publicly. In fact, he always defended him. Whenever my mother complained about Eric's gambling or irresponsible decisions, Grandpa would simply say, "He's still family." But even as a kid, I could tell Grandpa was disappointed. Eric always had big plans. He was always talking about some amazing business opportunity. A new investment. A guaranteed way to make money. Every few months there was a different scheme. And every few months it failed. Yet somehow he always managed to convince someone to lend him money. Usually Grandpa. When Grandpa passed away, I was 22 and struggling through college. I worked nights stocking shelves at a grocery store and attended classes during the day. Money was tight. Some weeks I had to choose between buying textbooks and buying groceries. Eric was 28 and already buried in debt from gambling and failed business ideas. A week after the funeral, the family gathered for the reading of the will. I remember sitting beside my mother while Eric looked unusually confident. Almost excited. Looking back, I should have known something was wrong. Most people look sad during a will reading. Eric looked like he was waiting to collect a prize. Then the lawyer began reading. Grandpa had left his house to be sold. The money would be divided equally between his grandchildren. Fair and simple. At least it should have been. Then the lawyer stopped. His expression changed. He looked confused. Very confused. Apparently, a legal document had been submitted 3 months before Grandpa died. According to the document, Grandpa had transferred most of his savings to Eric. Nearly everything. My mother immediately stood up. That doesn't make sense. The lawyer agreed. Apparently Grandpa had never mentioned it. Not once. But the paperwork appeared legitimate. Signatures. Witnesses. Everything. The room became quiet. Nobody knew what to say. Then Eric pretended to be surprised. Too surprised. I noticed immediately. The rest of the family didn't. But I did. The look on his face felt rehearsed. Like an actor trying too hard. Afterward, I confronted him in the parking lot. He laughed. Actually laughed. Then he said something I'll never forget. Grandpa knew who deserved it. I nearly punched him. Instead, I walked away. For weeks I couldn't stop thinking about it. The whole thing felt wrong. Grandpa had always treated us equally. Why would he suddenly leave almost everything to Eric? The more I thought about it, the less sense it made. Then Eric started spending money. Lots of money. Within 2 months, he bought a brand new luxury SUV. The kind of vehicle nobody in our family could normally afford. Then he moved into an expensive apartment downtown. He started posting photos online. Fancy restaurants. Designer clothes. Weekend trips to Las Vegas. Meanwhile, I dropped out of college because I couldn't afford tuition anymore. I still remember packing my books into cardboard boxes. I felt like my future had been stolen. My mother blamed herself. She cried constantly. Not because of the money. Because she believed Grandpa would never have wanted this. Family gatherings became awkward. Everyone avoided talking about the inheritance. Whenever Eric showed up, people became quiet. Then eventually people stopped inviting him altogether. Life wasn't fair. But there wasn't much I could do. Or so I thought. 2 years later, my mother called me crying. She had been cleaning out old boxes from Grandpa's garage. And she found something. Something that changed everything. A notebook. At first it looked worthless. Just pages filled with Grandpa's handwriting. Then she noticed one entry. A very specific entry. 3 weeks before his death. It read, "Eric keeps asking me to sign papers." I told him no. My heart stopped. Then I turned the page. And things got much worse. The next page contained details that shocked everyone. Grandpa had written everything down. Every conversation. Every visit. Every argument. For months. One entry stood out immediately. It was dated only 2 weeks before he died. It read, "Eric brought documents again, said they were for insurance, refused to let me read them. I told him to leave." The room went silent. My mother was crying. I was shaking. Because suddenly everything made sense. The signatures. The paperwork. The inheritance. It all looked different now. For the first time, I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't being bitter. There was actual evidence that something had happened. But evidence wasn't enough. Not yet. The notebook alone couldn't overturn legal documents. A lawyer reviewed everything. After reading the entries, he told us something that gave me hope. If these notes are genuine, they could help establish a pattern. A pattern. That was exactly what we needed. Over the next few months, we dug into everything. Old bank records, emails, witness statements, phone records, anything connected to the inheritance transfer. Then something unexpected happened. One of the witnesses from the paperwork was contacted. His name was Mark, an old friend of Eric's. The moment the lawyer called him, he panicked. At first, he refused to answer questions. Then he hired a lawyer. Then a few weeks later, he suddenly agreed to cooperate. That's when the entire story began to unravel. Mark confessed. The documents had been signed under false pretenses. Grandpa believed he was signing insurance forms, not transferring his life savings. Eric had told him the paperwork was necessary to update his records. Grandpa trusted him, and Eric took advantage of that trust. Worse still, Eric had convinced two friends to act as witnesses. Neither of them actually read the documents. They simply signed where Eric told them to sign. The case exploded. News spread throughout the family. Relatives who hadn't spoken in years suddenly started calling each other. Everyone was furious. My mother blamed herself for not seeing the signs. I blamed myself for not pushing harder when things first felt wrong. But the anger mostly focused on Eric. For the first time, he couldn't talk his way out of it. Family members stopped speaking to him. Friends disappeared. His girlfriend left him. Even people who barely knew Grandpa were disgusted by what he had done. The court battle lasted almost a year. And it was exhausting. There were hearings, appeals, arguments, delays. Eric fought every step of the way. He claimed Grandpa knew exactly what he was signing. He claimed everyone was attacking him because they were jealous. But the evidence kept piling up. Notebook entries, witness testimony, financial records. Eventually, the judge ruled the transfer invalid. I still remember sitting in the courtroom when the decision was announced. My mother started crying, this time from relief. Most of the remaining money was recovered. Not all of it. Eric had already spent a huge amount. Luxury vacations, cars, gambling, parties. Money that Grandpa spent his entire life earning had vanished in just a few years. But enough was recovered to redistribute the inheritance properly. For the first time in years, it felt like justice had finally caught up with him. I returned to college, finished my degree, graduated with honors, started a small business with a friend. The business grew. Slowly at first, then faster. Within a few years, I was earning more money than I ever imagined. Not because of the inheritance, because I finally had the opportunity to build something. Meanwhile, Eric's life went in the opposite direction. His debts grew. His friends vanished. His reputation was destroyed. Nobody trusted him anymore. Every few months, I would hear another rumor. He lost another job. Got evicted again. Owed money to someone. Moved to another city. The details changed. The pattern never did. For years, I heard nothing directly from him. Almost a decade passed. Then one rainy night, just after midnight, someone knocked on my front door. At first, I ignored it. Then they knocked again. And again. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. My stomach dropped. It was Eric. I hadn't seen him in nearly 10 years. I barely recognized him. He looked 20 years older. His hair was thinner. His clothes were worn out. His face looked tired. Defeated. The expensive watches were gone. The confidence was gone. Everything was gone. I opened the door. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, he looked down and quietly said, "I need help." I just stared at him. The same brother who stole from our grandfather. The same brother who destroyed our family. The same brother who laughed while my life fell apart. Now he wanted help. He explained that he had lost everything. No money. No job. No apartment. No family willing to answer his calls. Nobody trusted him anymore. Then he started crying. Real tears. Maybe for the first time in his life. He apologized for Grandpa. He apologized to Mom. He apologized to me. Then he said something I never expected. I think about what I did every day. Part of me wanted to slam the door. Part of me wanted to yell. But strangely, I felt nothing. No anger. No hatred. Just exhaustion. After 10 years, carrying that anger had become heavy. Finally, Eric looked up and asked, "Can you forgive me?" I thought about everything. Grandpa. My mother. The years I lost. The opportunities stolen from me. The nights I spent wondering if justice would ever come. Then I answered, "I forgive you." His face lit up. For the first time that night, he smiled. Until I continued. But forgiveness doesn't mean you get another chance. The smile disappeared. I explained that forgiveness was for me. Not for him. It meant I wasn't carrying the anger anymore. It didn't erase what happened. It didn't rebuild trust. It didn't undo 10 years of damage. Some mistakes are simply too big. Eric nodded slowly. I think he finally understood. Without another word, he turned around and walked back into the rain. I watched him disappear down the street. Then I closed the door. And for the first time in my life, I felt completely at peace. The end.